AI is shaping or reshaping marketing. What are your thoughts on that, Anand, at a broad GTM scale?
AI has supported the execution-driven things more, right? So where the execution, that kind of speeding up things, and that should have seen more impact.
Welcome to another podcast of AI Entanglement. My name is Prem Talreja. I am the CEO of LunaGen. We do these podcasts to basically push the information around how AI is impacting our lives and is intertwined with our work and our business work. So AI Entanglement is just a nice way to untangle or dive deep into how AI is impacting our business. Today, we are talking with Anand Akela, a CMO of Calvio Technologies, where he has a leadership role in advancing their strategy and their products in the security space and driving the adoption of their active defense platform. Anand has previously worked at Nutanix and Tricentis and has a vast experience in the industry, and his experience in leveraging his expertise to steer early stage companies towards technology and growth is evident in his role as an advisor at Z21, a venture firm. And then it clearly reflects his outlook towards helping others by his numerous years of charter membership at TIE, a global organization, plus being the CMO of numerous TIE conferences impacting the next generation of entrepreneurs. He's an alum of Duke Fuqua School, which is also my alma mater. So welcome, Anand.
Thanks, Prem. It's great to talk with another Duke alum.
Yeah, thank you. So today, Anand, we're going to talk about how AI is reshaping marketing specifically, because your background comes from there, or knowledge at least that you can share with us at a broader aspect of GTM and across the various stages of what we globally will say marketing in terms of product development, product definition, strategy, and go to market. So with that in mind, I'll jump right into the questions and saying that, Anand, whereas every generation of digital technology has impacted marketing very quickly. It's easy to adopt that technology, whether it was the internet or video creation and content creation, so on and so forth. So today we are talking about how AI is shaping or reshaping marketing. What are your thoughts on that, Anand, at a broad GTM scale?
Yeah. AI is, as you know, impacting pretty much everything, including GTM and all the different facets of GTM, right? Whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether customer success, product management, different functions of marketing, from content to demand generation to kind of building go-to-market strategy. It is impacting everything. We have tried it in different experimented AI for different things. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in general, what I've seen is that AI has supported the execution driven things more, right? So where the execution, that kind of speeding up things, and that should have seen more impact. Content, for example, AI SDR functionality, both outbound and inbound, have seen impact. I have also seen, things like data, finding the right ICP with the right characteristics. And for example, we tried Clay and kind of giving the different parameters, it waterfalls. So if there's not one tool giving you the information, it goes and looks for other tools and kind of waterfall until it finds the data. So, it has impacted on those areas where execution has been, like where it kind of helps gain efficiency. But there are other areas where kind of intelligence, kind of that impacts, that helps with strategy, it is starting to help. Not necessarily have seen big impacts, but that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I am glad the way you framed the answer as well. And to that point, is to surface some practical lessons that you've had to conduct some tests and inside your marketing and then adopt them. Because I think some of that could be false positives and things like that. But what has your approach been to adopt AI at your company?
We like many others marketers, we started with content, right? Kind of it was easy, kind of especially for someone who is like me, right? I am an engineer at heart, technologist at heart, started as an engineer, managed engineering teams, product management. Creative writing or writing is not necessarily my strength. I can
Right.
think logically, I can think strategically, but like I needed an editor at the end to kind of write, kind of get my writing in a more cohesive way. That it was AI was a huge help for me because
Yeah.
I could kind of talk to them and kind of come up with something that communicates in a better way. So content is one area that we started early on, all different kind of tools. We playing with outbound meeting settings. So, the
Yeah.
SDR functionality, for example, event. So we have booths at large events, RSA, Black Hat, and other places, and we like to set up meetings with our target like prospects over there. And we had reached out all different ways, and like all message was exact same message. Like everyone we sent exact same message that hey, we'll be there. World is changing, and we have the best solution, and that's about it. And it was not specific to them. So we started playing with tools that could customize based on who they are, and it had mixed results. Let me say say mixed results. We definitely got some meetings out of it, but the tone and I was told that okay, if our CEO, the founder sends the message, it is more like especially startup founders, prospect kind of consider that like having a meeting with them a little bit more than kind of someone from sales or marketing, right? So we
Right.
started sending messages from our CEO's profile, and he speaks in a different tone, different way, and it reached to a couple of prospects who he had worked with, and they came back and said that, hey, you don't seem to talk like this. What's going on here? and and so tone was not right, and
The-
yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
and we tried 3 or 4 different solutions and always kind of get stuck on the tone part, like it customizes the messages. It was still not very, most of the time it kind of looks at LinkedIn and LinkedIn profile and kind of uses that. And so, for example, look at my LinkedIn profile. There are 3 concurrent things that anyone would see. I'm CMO of Calvio Technologies, right? I'm a venture advisor of Z21,
Yeah.
and I am a charter member of TIE. So these are the 3 things at present. 2 of them are at volunteer capacity, and one is my full-time job. I get messages sometimes through these AI tools that talks about how they could help me grow the Z21 business and things like that, right? And it's not necessarily, I mean, maybe, like if that's the context, but I'm not that interested. Coming to
Correct.
my Calvio email about Z21 is not necessarily the right thing. So we had seen some of those things. It has gotten better to an extent that we just onboarded a new tool, and we have seen good results, and we are just getting started with that, and let's see how that goes. So, but the most important thing that I kind of encourage marketers, and I'm part of CMO communities and hear that as well, that it is important to experiment. It's not like you cannot just sit idle and kind of wait for everything to settle down and have the best tool available, and then you start 2 years later. That's not the thing. Idea is
Yeah.
to start now, experiment, see what works for you, what does not, and we actually had built our entire marketing stack using tools like Clay, N8N, Cloud, and then later on decided to not go that route and use kind of a solution that was completely kind of built for us rather than kind of using different tools. So we
Got
experimented with that, had some successes, but there were some challenges there, especially about like the usage and things like that. So we decided to kind of go with another solution that has built it all and provides, services, support to us to kind of help
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
move
Yeah.
along.
So I'll just take that, click on that a little bit. That did you find that this was so? In a sense, it was more about productivity and utilizing your current team more productively and giving them early successes So, and what impact did it have on your team in terms of their learnings to adapt to these tools? But would you say this was more about productivity rather than strategy?
Yeah, I definitely. So far, the successes or kind of the initial experimentation has mostly been in productivity. But like I have been a product marketer. That's where I started my product marketing career. There are a lot
Mhm.
of things that a product marketer does. Ultimately, helps with go to market developing go to market strategy and kind of
Sure.
coming up with the execution plan for that. And we are starting to use AI for giving us the intelligence so that we could build the right strategy. We are not there that we could kind of give it to the AI and say that, hey, build our next strategy or tweak the strategy given the
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of changes lately. Like, for example, Mythos came in, in
Yeah.
our world, it completely changed and we saw certain things. And what we used AI for is to get intelligence to reshape, change, extend our strategy
Yeah.
rather than saying that, hey, Mythos happened, suggest a strategy. Not
Yeah.
that way. We kind of use data to build that.
Yeah. And so this is about trust. I think, AI and its exfiltration of information, plus its desire to please you with answers no matter what, hallucination, because AI as such, prompts don't say, I don't know. Okay. But so as a result of that, what were you doing in the area of trusting the information that you were getting?
Double checking, making sure that the data coming in is logical to start with, which it is in most of the cases, all the cases, in fact. But also checking with expert. I'll tell you an example is that we were trying to make a ROI case for like the if breach happens, what is the cost and what is the kind of the long tail nature of the
Oh,
cost,
it's a good
right? Like
example.
the
Yeah.
breach, yeah. So breach happens, and so there's kind of immediate cost, and then there's some brand, and then there's some insurance. There's a lot of things happen, and so we did a two or three cases where we kind of really used AI to understand the long tail nature of the total cost in billions of dollars. And we really kind of put that together in a way that, hey, breach is not only about one time cost, has a long tail effect. And in order that you really need to do A, B, and C to do that. And once we got the data, actually, we had access to a CISO, for example, who was there at that time. I would not kind of name names here, but I went there after I got the data compiled from AI, validated with them, and he was surprised that, hey, how do you know that? This is not something that we talked about in public. And a lot of the data was pretty good. So what I'm saying here is that just kind of taking the data as it is I would say that double check, validate, because AI will do mistakes. AI, I mean, we could talk more about that later, but the hallucination, misalignment, AI could decide to go rogue. Could decide that, hey, it's not. I will not do what you want me to do, and those are the things that we have seen them doing. So validating, especially if you're making a strategic decision, which will decide your business or your current project's future. I think a little validation is still important.
Yeah. Well, talking about going rogue, as you said, I think that one of the things that I come across with prompt engineering and prompt injection or things of that nature, it appears that there is a concern in the security space in general that a prompt, first prompt and the second or third prompt can get so much information. And say, in the example of our marketing and sales activity, CRM, it goes into the CRM and it can change priorities, change the
Yeah.
deal flow, change the customers. So, and you come from the security background, your company is built around that. I think our other companies blindsided by that, if not yours, because you're quite aware of what is happening. But is there a potential where we are still at the point where people will be blindsided and then it'll mess them up?
Yes, people who are ignorant, it will happen to them. But I see that there are a lot of people. There's a lot of awareness in general
Mm,
about that.
I see.
some of the cloud mythos, for example, has brought in a lot of awareness, anxiety. One of the things when mythos did is that it found 0 days vulnerability that has not been ever, like BSD, for example, supposed to be the secure most OS, and they found 0 day there. On 0 day, by definition, there is no patch there. And what would you do? Nothing. And if you think about that, if it gets into bad hands, they would just exploit those 0 days and could do whatever they want. So, when that happens, a group of like CSA, Cloud Security Alliance, and like 250 different CISOs, they thought that, okay, this is a really kind of a monumental moment for the security industry in general. And they came together, some real kind of security thought leaders, and they came up with a strategy paper and came up with like what you should do, A, B, C, and D. Raised awareness. So I would say that people are getting aware, like that when I go to events, people talk more about that. Let me kind of talk about like three different kind of threats that we are seeing. One, with AI. One is that, the typical threats that was there in the past, but the speed, what AI brings is the speed, concurrency, and scale. And because of that, the threat timeline is shrinking. So you really need to kind of have a response ready. You cannot wait until things happen or later in the kill chain to find that. The sooner you find, the better off you are. Right. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one thing, that one kind of threat. It's the similar threats, similar problems, but speed has kind of made it very, very difficult.
Yeah.
0 day, like when you could, threat actors could put, in a loop and create a 0 day by just changing little parameters. So 0 day is something that no signature or TTP is what they call is known, because it's by definition 0 day. Once it is known, then people know the signature and they could do something about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that's second. Third one is I kind of think more as a, like in my past world, I called it kind of insider attack, right?
Yeah.
So now, with the prompt injection, as well as misalignment that we talked about going rogue, those are kind of the extended use cases of insider threats, because, like you believe that that's kind of that those agents are working for you, but they're not. They're doing something different, right?
Right.
And the third type of thing I'm seeing is that, and I see that already kind of, I've seen examples, is that the infrastructure, the MCP servers, the AI infrastructure basically getting attacks. And so these are the three different type of attacks I'm seeing. And, like all of these needs to be dealt with in some form or the other. And they're all different technologies. Gartner has come up with what they call preemptive cybersecurity, where basically they say that, hey, being reactive is not an option anymore.
Right.
Like detect and response is not enough. You need to be preemptive in nature. You need to kind of find early and in the kill chain and decide that. And the technology at Calvio that we work on is called deception technology, where we create deceptive artifacts and mix it up with the real things. And any engagement with deceptive artifact is a high fidelity alert. And deception is the only known technology known for detecting 0 days. And that's where we're getting some good traction around that. And that's where I see that as we move forward, uh, there's some kind of environmental guardrail is required. All the AI vendors are putting a lot of guardrails with Mythos and everything. They're making it really, really robust. They're making it, hardening it a lot. But
Yeah.
that's not good enough. You need some additional guardrails that, security companies are building on, including ours.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And I think that in a way, your customers, or for that matter, yourself, you're always concerned about the impact on your brand if
Mhm.
something rogue happens or wrong happens. And as you said, it could be an internal issue that some developer inadvertently stepped onto something because the governance was not there or the protection was not there and the kill mentality was not there. So as a result, we're in the world now where brands are going to get impacted here and there, and the headlines will impact the industry. So it's not like we're going to walk away from AI. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But AI is incredibly useful, powerful, and capable of helping. But I think that, does that rise in the top of mind share for at your role as a CMO, saying we have what how is our brand going to get impacted if something rogue
Yeah.
happens?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, completely. It's we've been talking about this brand and like with the digital world with internet coming in,
Yeah.
marketing has changed.
Completely.
You cannot just broadcast. In the past, people depended on whatever you said in manual and technical documents and
Yep.
white papers. That was the only way for customers or prospects to figure out. Internet kind of gave them more information, and now AI actually even does that even more, right? That you
Yes.
have they a lot of prospects are doing all the research beforehand before kind of coming to your web page, before raising their hand. And it is very, very important that we provide them information to those AI tools, the LLMs, in a way that when prospects or customers search, they get answers to the queries the way they want. So it
Yeah.
kind of like moves from one directional to real bi-directional. Like you need to understand what they're asking, and you have to provide information in that way. People have talked about, like in the past, we have optimized our web page for search engine. Now we are optimizing our web page for these generative engines and GEO, AIO, and things like that, because that's what people are doing. And it's instead of human reading, machine is reading. So you have to kind of make your content, your website, all of that in a different way. I would say in two ways. Human is still reading, but the machine is reading as well. So you have to make it like key value pair to some extent, right? Like the phrases, like the
Very good.
prompts. You have to kind of like put the prompts and respond to that so that it is easier for LLMs to pick those up. So yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a little bit of change, not little, a lot changed in that world, and we are working on that. And at this time, we don't even know the algorithms they are using. So we are guessing that this is what chat GPT is doing versus Gemini is doing versus cloud is doing. We can learn a pattern, and then suddenly things changes.
Yeah.
So
The good old
things like
SEO days, where you were
yeah.
constantly changing or chasing what
Mhm.
the SEO engines were doing at a rapid pace. So, speaking from that point of view, that is, we saw in the last 30 years the shift in the seller power shifting to the buyer power, right? The buyers started to have more power. In if you go into the old five power model, there was a time when the sellers had more power, but now the buyers have over time increase their power because they have research tools, they come educated. Doctors say the same thing, patients know more about their problem, right or wrong. So this buyer power, but with AI, has this shift increased, or has it given us a little bit of balance of power? Because now, I don't know. I'm just asking in general
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
what is the
I
impact
mean,
on buyer power at this time?
yeah, and it's still kind of this whole thing is being transformed to some extent. It's not
Yeah.
transformed; it's in the process of. So I could talked about in kind of context of GEO. It has to be conversational in nature, right? So definitely buyer have more power. They could do research without you knowing it. So you need to make sure that you are right at most of the places. Anything bad like is there, it will kind of get amplified and visible. There are reputation site like G2 or Gartner Peer Insights. If there are bad reviews there, they will show up first to those prospects who are not even talking to you, so that you can show them only the 5-star rating because they're kind of
Yeah.
going without you. Conversational tools like Reddit, for example, has become very, very important in this process, right? So they see, like Reddit is where people with knowledge kind of share information about certain things, technology, tools, and things like that. And a vendor is not as influential. I mean, there are ways to kind of deal with that, but so that conversational kind of tool is helping in like so for example GEO, if you go look search something, you look for reference, you see Reddit is it kind of high in the list because of that nature. So it also kind of helps the seller as well to kind of look at those tools and have your advocates, your subject matter expert provide information. So it's about the world is changing in a way is that how a vendor will succeed when they help their buyer make a decision in more intelligent way. So they provide the intelligence. They share that intelligence so that buyer can make a difference. A buyer can make a decision. And
Yes.
that's where Reddit and some of these tools comes into picture. And it will same go in the even the content that you write is that how you educate, how you can provide the information that educates them and provides the intelligence so they could make a decision the right way.
Yeah, I think this is very good what you just said is that one of the ways the seller can regain control of the conversation is because we could be making better content that enables the buyer, maybe leads the buyer down a path. But the point is that we're also not guessing. We can actually play out those scenarios. So that's very good. Yeah. Thank you. And in closing, I would ask that if you look out 2 or 3 years or maybe 5 years, how will AI change marketing and what advice can we give to our next generation of marketing folks that I run across all the time? And you do a lot of guiding in that sense. How can they
Yeah.
remain relevant in this fast moving market
Yeah.
opportunity?
I'll answer the question in two ways. One, I will focus kind of in the security world very quickly and kind of how I see. One is that I see that it will be bot versus bot world, right?
Yeah.
Bots will be, there will be duels between them. Bot will be trying to the threat actors, the bad actors will use when I say bot, it's an AI agent to create new threats, get the creative ways, clever ways to get in and compromise. And the only way you could stay ahead of them is having your own agent, your own bot. So both bot versus bot duel is the future as we move forward. The smarter your bot is, you could stay ahead in the game. Stay ahead of the threat actors. Coming
Good.
to marketing, I think we talked about some of these that we are in the process of transformation. The focus has been on gaining efficiency, the execution. It is already started. We are already starting to see the kind of the direction of kind of getting intelligence to help with strategic decision. I see that we will get to a world in the next 2-3 years that we use AI for making strategic decisions and get into the world that we get options for different strategic option. And I think that it's still in 2-3 years, human will still be involved in kind of making real strategic decision. At least I believe that. We'll see how that goes. But I believe that AI will be in a position to provide more intelligence to make strategic decisions.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Anand. This is an endless discussion, probably not
Yeah.
the last one that we will have. Revisit this subject in the future, but I am very delighted to have this conversation with you.